Hello and welcome to the next episode in the 2D C++ game development YouTube series. This is the fourth episode, the one where we take the room class that we created in the last episode and now call it from our main function so that we can move forward in our 2D game. If you recall, in the last episode, we created two files. We created the room.h file, this one here. This is our header file that does all the declarations for the room class. And we also created the room.cpp, which is the file that has all the implementations of the room class. This is the file that tells the room class what it does. And the room.h file is the one that declares all like your variables and functions that are within the room class. So if we go back to our launcher.cpp, this is the file that we created back in episode number 1. This is the one that contains the main function, the function that starts your program. We decided to call it launcher.cpp because this is symbolically what it does. It launches your game. So to signify the launching of the game, we decided to call it launcher. So there are two things that we need to do when creating an object. One, we need to include the header file in this file so that we know what the object is. And two, we have to call the constructor of the object of the class so that which essentially creates the object in memory. So let's include it into this file. C++ has the keyword include, and this is how you include all header files into your program. We prefix the include with a hashtag. What the hashtag is C++ has preprocessor directives that causes the compiler to replace that line with the entire text of its contents. So it's going to take the entire header file and put it right before your program. That's what that does. So let's include our header. So we put the room.h, we call the header file. So room.h is the header file, and we surround it by quotations because it's going to the quotations represent the directory that the program is in. It's going to search that directory to find room.h. If we were to put the angled brackets around here, and excuse me because I don't know the proper term, but if we put the angled brackets around there, you notice we get an error because the angled brackets represent the C++ library directory, where it would search your computer for the C++ library directory for this room.h, and it won't find it there. So we need I'll just put this back the way it was. We need the room.h, and you notice the error goes away. So the next step is to actually call the constructor. The constructor is what's going to create is going to run the instructions as you create the room. So to do that, in our main function, because this is the program that we're writing, in our main function, we are going to call the room class. The data type of the room class is essentially what it's called, the room. And then we give it a variable name, and we're going to call it room. We'll call it R, and we'll end that with the semicolon. Now that we've created the room, we've created it in the stack memory. And I know this is a beginner course, but I also know that you have some familiarity when it comes to C++ language and the basics involving C++. This is an intermediate to that, so to speak, but it's beginner game development. We don't necessarily want to create the room in the stack memory, since it's going to be a hub to other things within the game. So we want to put this more on the heap, something that will stay in memory for a lot longer period of time, however the game wants it to be. So we do that by doing equals room. This essentially puts it outside of the stack. Now this is good and all, but we're gonna need to access the room outside of the main function. I know the main function runs everything, but as soon as you call a function that's outside of the main function, it loses the scope of those variables, and we need to move that out. So if we move room.r, we take that out and we put that outside the main function. Now it becomes a global variable, and we put r equals that. Now it becomes a global variable, and that works just as well. Now we can access that room from all over our program. So let's run this to make sure that we run this. So if we do Control F5 and we run this, let's see if it works. No problems. Exited with code 0. Press any key to continue. Perfect. It succeeded. But how do we really know that it's working? I know the program succeeded and all, but how do we know? How can we make this room send us a message that it was created? Well, let's go back to the room. In the room definitions, how about if we go to the implementation of the room, so room.cpp, this is the constructor. If in the constructor we tell it to display a little text saying this is the room, and I'm sure you all know what the cout and the ENDL is. I just have to include the standard IO stream, sorry. Now it should all be good. Perfect. So now every time the constructor is called, it's going to run this code. So if I were to run this now by Control F5 and bring it up, it spits out this. This is the room. This is the room. What? Having it call out twice is not something we want it to do. It's calling out twice because we created a room right here, and then we took that room and we created a new room on top of that room. So essentially, the program thought we were creating the room twice. We don't want that to happen. Instead, if we create a pointer to a room object by creating that, by putting a star in front of it, we can come down here and now we get an error because we don't want R to become a new room, or to become a room because it's not. It's a pointer to a room. We need to put the keyword new in front of room, and this will create a new room inside the pointer of R. So now, if we run this, put Control F5, we only get this is the room once, because we created a pointer to the room, and then we filled that pointer with a new room. And this is how we get it to call once. In the next video, we're going to take the room and we're going to modify it to fit what we would like the room to be. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button and the subscribe button so that you can stick around as we dive more into this 2D game programming stuff in C++. Thank you.